let's talk about one of the most frustrating feelings in the world. You know the one. You are just completely exhausted, but you absolutely cannot sleep. Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down the anatomy of what's really going on inside your body.
I mean, it is the ultimate paradox, right? You've dragged yourself through the entire day, you finally collapse into bed, you're physically spent, and then nothing. Your body is just screaming for rest, but your brain has other plans. It just refuses to power down. So what is happening here? Why are you so tired, but you just can't sleep?
We like to call this the 2 a.m. paradox. It's that moment, when you glance over at the clock, you do the math, and you realize just how little sleep you're about to get. And the frustration, the anxiety, it just skyrockets. And you'd be surprised how incredibly common this is.
Does this sound familiar to you? My body is exhausted, but my brain just won't shut off. I mean, this just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that feeling, that internal disconnect where your body and your mind are on two completely different pages.
This is that classic tired but wired state. And look, if this is something you're going through, the very first thing you need to know is you are absolutely not alone. This isn't some weird personal quirk. It's a real, documented physiological thing, and it even has a name.
So let's give this enemy a proper name. What we're talking about here, what you might be experiencing, is often called restless fatigue.
And here's the more official definition. Restless fatigue. It's a state where your very real, very deep physical exhaustion is literally being overridden by a state of mental or physiological hyperarousal. And that arousal is what's actively stopping you from falling asleep. So no, it's not just in your head, it's deep in your biology.
Okay, so probably the easiest way to understand restless fatigue is to picture a battle that's raging inside you every single night. There are two really powerful opposing forces, and their conflict, well, that's what's keeping you staring at the ceiling.
So first, let's meet one of the fighters in this battle, the side that, right now, is probably winning. This is the wired side. These are all the forces that are actively keeping you awake. So, leading Team Wired, you've got stress hormones, and the big one is cortisol. Think of cortisol as your body's built-in alarm system. It's fantastic if you need to, run from a threat, but it's absolutely terrible when you're trying to sleep. Then you've got racing thoughts. That's your brain deciding that 2 a.m. is the perfect time to replay every awkward thing you've ever said, or maybe build a to-do list for the next decade. And finally, there's mental hyperstimulation. You know that buzzing feeling you get after scrolling on your phone or firing off one last work email? It keeps your brain humming long after you've turned the lights out.
But on the other side of that battlefield, we have the anatomy of tired. And these are the powerful biological forces that are desperately demanding that you get some sleep. The captain of this team is a chemical called adenosine. The best way to think about it is like a sleep timer that builds up in your brain all day long. Scientists call it sleep pressure. The longer you're awake, the more that pressure builds, making you feel sleepy. Backing that up is just plain old physical exhaustion in your muscles and the deep biological need for your cells to start their nightly repair cycle, which, by the way, can only really happen during deep sleep.
And here you can see the conflict laid out perfectly. On one side, you've got Team Wired, stress, anxiety, stimulation. On the other, Team Tired, that sleep pressure and physical exhaustion. Now, in a perfect world, Team Tired wins at the end of the day, but with restless fatigue, Team Wired is just shouting louder. It's actively overpowering and suppressing the signals from the tired team, even though your body's need for sleep is massive.
And this all leads to what we call the nightly tug-of-war. But here's the kicker. It's not just a simple battle. It's actually a self-perpetuating cycle that can get worse and worse over time.
So here's how this vicious cycle actually traps you. It starts at number 1. Stress keeps you awake. Okay, makes sense. Number 2, that lack of sleep, of course, causes fatigue the next day. No surprise there. But here's the really cruel twist at number 3, that fatigue actually lowers your ability to handle stress, so it makes you more stressed and more anxious, especially about not being able to sleep, which of course leads us right back to the beginning, making it even harder to sleep the next night. And the whole cycle repeats, often getting more intense each time.
Okay, so we've just broken down the science behind this internal battle, but what does all this really mean for you? What's the takeaway here?
Well, first, it means that this feeling you have is a real, legitimate, physiological state. It's not all in your head. Second, and this is so important, it means this is a biological conflict, not a personal failing. You're not bad at sleeping. And finally, just understanding the anatomy of this problem, knowing the names of these opposing forces, that is the absolute first step toward figuring out how to tip the scales back in favor of sleep.
So we're going to leave you with this thought. Now that you understand this nightly tug of war between wired and tired, the next time you find yourself lying there awake, just ask yourself, what is my body trying to tell me right now?